One thing that I need to work on as a reader is putting down books that I'm not enjoying, because honestly, life is too short to be reading books that you're not liking. And I know I need to work on this because as I was compiling this list, there were not as many books on here as there should have been. Here is every book that I have ever DNF'd and why. The first book that I ever DNF'd was The Stand by Stephen King. Now I actually DNF'd this twice. I know that this book is super popular, but it's also incredibly long. Like I think like 1,200 pages. And this book is about a virus that gets released from a secret government facility that kills like 99% of the population, except that actually is not at all relevant to what is talked about in the blurb of the book, which is crazy to me, you know, because the blurb is talking about like the most important parts of the plot, yet the entire 200 pages that I read that was talking about this deadly virus, not at all mentioned in the blurb. So the fact that I, on my second read, read 200 pages and didn't even get to any of the plot points that were mentioned in the blurb just seems a bit crazy to me. That I read a sixth of the book and still have not gotten to any of the important plot points. So I said, I'm giving up. That's enough for me. The next book I DNF'd was The Coven by Harper L. Woods. Now let me just say, I should not have been reading this book. The only reason I picked up this book was because I got an e-arc of the second book. So obviously I was like, I need to read the first book before I can read the second book. Girl, you shouldn't have even asked for that e-arc in the first place because you do not like books with vampires in them. So why did I pick it up? Because I'm dumb. I knew it was gonna be spicy going into it, and I knew that I didn't want to read a book that had spice in it. Did it anyways. And then I gave up because I was like, you know, it's not fair to this author and to other people who are interested in reading this book if I continue to read this book knowing I'm not gonna like it and give it a bad review. That just doesn't make any sense. So I'm just gonna stop reading it. Mysterious Ways by Wendy Wonder. I'm not gonna lie, I think this is the quickest that I've ever DNF'd a book because I think I closed it and put it down in like the first 3 pages. I literally only read 3 pages, okay? So the plot could be really great. However, it is from the point of view of like a high school teenager, and it was very much giving boomer trying to use Gen Z slang. And it was on a whole other level of cringe that I just could not handle. So I only made it through like 3 pages and said, no thank you, I'm done with that. The Christmas Bookshop by Jenny Colgan. Now you may be wondering, Jess, why on earth would you DNF a Christmas romance? Like, what was so bad about this one that you couldn't finish reading it? Let me tell you, this book centers around an FMC whose life is falling apart and she just wants to wallow in bed for the rest of her life. She is in like her late 30s, early 40s, and her life blows up and she just decides that it's everyone else's problem and she's not going to do anything else to fix it. Now, I was raised by pick yourself up by your bootstraps parents, so to watch this character be so whiny and make all of her problems everybody else's problem was just way too much for me. And once the guy that I'm assuming was going to be the love interest was introduced, I couldn't stand him either. So I said, this is Christmas, I'm supposed to be enjoying myself. Throw this book in the trash. Normal People by Sally Rooney. Now, I was just as surprised about this one as you are. I thought I was gonna absolutely love this book. I thought it was so up my street and I was really going to enjoy it. However, in the first 12 pages, you get a scene where the FMC is watching the MMC play in a soccer game. And no joke, she's watching him play this soccer game and says, direct quote, basically, I would love to watch him sleep with somebody else, but probably in a bit more explicit language. And I was like, I'm sorry, what? Why? What on earth possessed you to say that or think that? She might not have been talking out loud, whatever. That's besides the point. That makes me uncomfortable. And we're on page 12. So if that's what it's like at page 12, I cannot imagine what it would have been like at page 300. So we're gonna skip that one. Close the door on that story and move on to something else. The Deal by Elle Kennedy. Now this one, I DNF'd on a reread. The first time I read this book, I loved it, probably gave it a 5 stars and read the rest of the 4 books in this series within a month. Second time, I go to reread it because I want to feel something and I want to reread a book that I love. I get to about a quarter of the way through the book and I'm like, this language in this book is way more vulgar than I remember it being. And I am not liking the way that these guys in this book are talking about women. it's very degrading and making me really uncomfortable. That, I think, is an example just to show you how your book taste can change as you read more books. Because the second time I read this book, I was reading it during my time of figuring out that I really don't want to read books that have spice in them. And this book is very spicy. I read a book, loved it, gave it 5 stars. Less than a year later, I reread it and couldn't even get halfway through. The other 2 books that I have currently DNF'd are soft DNFs, which means I have full intentions to finish these books at some point. When I was reading them initially, wasn't really feeling it, and I wanted to enjoy these books, so I put them down so that later, when I am in the mood to read these books, I can pick them up and actually enjoy them. The first one was Hotel Magnifique by Emily J. Taylor, very much giving Carval vibes, and I love Carval, so you know, I want to really enjoy this book, so I put it down. Then the other one was Quicksilver. This one I just really wasn't in the mood. Those are all the books that I have DNF'd. And let me tell you, I have a list of every book that I should have DNF'd in 2024, and it's probably 3 times as long as this list. Clearly that's something I need to work on as a reader, as a person. That is all I have for you guys today. If you enjoyed this video, please give a thumbs up to let me know that you enjoy this type of content. Comment down below the last book that you have ever DNF'd and your tips on how to DNF more books if you're not enjoying them. And subscribe to my channel for more bookish content in the future. I hope you have a lovely rest of your week, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.